the question?
I think so.
Okay, so what do you think?
I think it'd be dishonest to say it wouldn't emotionally affect me at all, my relationship with he and his wife. I do believe I could be impartial in rendering a verdict, but I can't say that there'd be no amount of emotional connection to him.
Uh, what do you mean when you say emotional connection and at the same time say that you can be impartial, you will be impartial?
I think it would be naive to say that, especially hearing his testimony, would feel the same as any of these folks who I don't know personally. I think that's silly. But I do feel like I could still render an impartial verdict, and that my relationship with them wouldn't affect my ability to do that.
In terms of assessing their credibility, and when I say their credibility, I'm referring to the credibility of Mr. Espinosa and his wife. Uh, do you think you'd be able to do that pursuant to my instructions?
I believe so.
And do you think you'd be able to do that the same way that you would assess the credibility of any other witness?
I believe so.
As you sit here, are you confident in your ability to do those things?
I am.
And then the question I had asked you, I think, before the break was whether you had any concerns that at some point in the future, if you ran into Mr. Espinosa and or his wife after the trial, you'd have to justify or explain how you viewed the case or your verdict. Is that going to be something that is going to be influencing you or affecting you in any way throughout the trial or as you make any decisions?
I don't believe so. I don't feel like I would need to justify anything to anyone, to be honest, including them.
And are you confident in that answer?
I am.
When you say that you're going to be, that you would be lying if you didn't admit that there would be more emotion with respect to the testimony of Mr. Espinosa and his wife, are you referring to the fact that you know them and that you've recently become friends with them?
Yes. I mean, if you're hearing about some of the things that I'm sure I'll hear about, I can't pretend that wouldn't affect me differently than any of the other witnesses we've seen.
And are you going to allow that to affect how you assess their credibility or consider their testimony?
I don't think so, no.
No. And is that going to in any way affect your ability and willingness to be fair and impartial?
No.
No? Okay. And again, you're confident in all those your answers?
I feel confident.
Okay. Let me have you wait outside
Okay.
again. Thank you.
Sure.
The record should reflect that juror number 737 has exited the courtroom again. Any other record from the prosecution, Ms. Tish McGuire, given that additional record?
No, Your Honor.
Any other questions that you want me to ask?
No, Your Honor.
Any requests that you're making of the court?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Brady, given that additional record, are there any other questions that you would like me to ask? Yes. Okay, and no other record that you're asking me to make, correct?
Correct.
And are you making any requests of the court at this time?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's, by the way, for the record, I think juror number 737 was being very honest with me here in the courtroom. I think he's a very thoughtful person. This is what I remember of him when we had individual voir dire. I think he is a very candid person who is thoughtful about his answers, doesn't just give you the first answer that comes to mind or the answer that he thinks you want to hear. He thinks about the question, processes the question, and then gives you as honest an answer as he possibly can. And I think that's why he asked to take some time to answer the last question that I had asked him when he was initially in the courtroom by himself. And I am convinced that after thinking about it, he is comfortable and confident in his ability and willingness to be fair and impartial as a juror in this trial. I'm also comfortable and confident in his ability and willingness to assess the credibility of the Espinosas in the same way that he would any other witness and pursuant to my instructions. He admitted that because of his knowledge of the Espinosas, there will be an emotional connection there. And he said, Judge, I would be lying if I said that there wouldn't be, given my knowledge of them and my friendship with them. But that's not going to affect my decisions in this case. That's not going to affect me in this case. It's not going to affect how I consider their testimony. It's not going to affect my ability and willingness to be fair and impartial. And I believe him when he says that. I believe him 100%. I find him to be very credible. I'm going to bring him back one more time just to make sure that he's not going to be discussing any of this with any of the other jurors. I want to make sure that to emphasize to him that he should not have any further discussions with anyone on the jury. And I also want to make sure that he doesn't have any other contact with the Espinosas at all during the trial. And of course, the people should advise the Espinosas to avoid all contact with this juror throughout the trial. It would be extremely improper for them to have any contact with him. Okay? Let's bring him back, please.
Judge, can I say one more thing before he
Yes.
comes in? I would ask the court to consider speaking to him again after the testimony of the Espinosas and just make sure, check in with him and make sure that he would stick by the same answers having heard their testimony.
I think that's a good idea. I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's bring him back, please. Juror number 737 is back in the courtroom. Sir, first of all, I wanted to commend you for bringing this up to my attention as quickly as you did. You did exactly the right thing. That was the right thing to do. Secondly, I want to emphasize that you cannot discuss any of this with the other jurors. That includes any business transactions that you've had with the Espinosas. That includes any friendship that you have with the Espinosas, any contact you've had with them. You cannot have any discussion about any of that with them, and you cannot have any discussions with the jurors, the other jurors, about what we've talked about here today. Do you understand all that?
Yes, sir.
All right. The last thing is you can have no contact with Mr. Espinosa or his wife throughout the remainder of the trial. No contact at all. That means in person, that means by telephone, that means by email, by text, in any possible way. No contact whatsoever.
Okay.
You understand?
My only concern is he might order something from my company, but I wouldn't personally have anything to do with that.
He will not
He won't do that. Okay, never mind.
He will not do that throughout the
Okay.
remainder of the trial.
Okay.
He will not do that.
Well, thanks for the
Yeah.
so much for that.
Yeah. Sorry. He will not do that. All right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And do you have any issues at all with following any of the instructions that I just gave you?
No, sir.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, let's bring the jury in, please. The record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom. Please be seated, everyone. Folks, I want to thank you for your patience. I very much appreciate that. Remember that there are times when I need to talk to the lawyers about administrative matters, other times about legal matters, and you should not infer anything from that. Don't read anything into that. I have a job to do, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability. So don't draw any inferences from that. But I very much thank you for how patient you've been. All right, Ms. Tish McGuire, you may proceed with the direct examination of Mr. Espinosa. And Mr. Espinosa, I will remind you that you're still under oath, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
I believe you had just told a jury about the fact that you were going to see The Dark Knight Rises.
Yes, ma'am.
Who were you going to the movies with that day?
Some of my family.
And who are those people's names, if you could state their full name for the record?
So I was going with Jackie Archuleta, Karen Gomez, Becky Gomez, and Amy Cook.
Did you actually end up going to the movie that night?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and where did you meet all of your friends when you got there?
We actually went together.
In one car?
I can't remember if it was one car. There was 5 of us, so.
You arrived at the movie theater together?
Yes. Yes.
And were you able to go right in?
We had purchased tickets prior to actually going to the theater. So some of us, some of the party went in and got seats, and then some of us stayed behind and got concessions and stuff.
Where were you able to all find seats together?
So it was higher up in the movie theater, if you're facing the screen, kind of on the right-hand side.
Connor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1123.
Yes.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, what is that?
It's a layout of the seats in the theater with a indication as to where we were sitting.
Do you recall who drew that diagram?
I did.
All right, and does it fairly and accurately represent where you believe your group of friends were sitting the night of July 19th, 2012 into July 20th of 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Your Honor, at this time I would move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1123.
Any objection?
No.
Without objection, Exhibit P-TR-1123 is admitted and may be published.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I could please have 1123. All right, and Mr. Espinosa, there is a microphone next to you on that ledge. If you could turn that on, please. And there is a stick behind you. If you could please point out for the jury where you were seated that night, if you could tell them the order of your family that evening.
So we were seated approximately in the seated area. I don't remember exactly what row it was. But this is my cousin Rebecca, Jackie, myself, Amy, and Karen.
All right, and could you tell the jury where you entered the theater that night?
We came in through this entryway here from the concession area.
And can you tell the jury where you ended up exiting the theater?
We exited out this emergency exit to our back left.
All right, thank you very much. You can take a seat. At some point in time, did your movie actually begin on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened in the middle of your movie?
Shortly after the movie started, I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but I saw something fly from my right to the left, kind of arcing over across the screen. Wasn't sure exactly what it was.
Is that if you're facing the movie theater screen from right to left?
Yeah, so my perspective as I'm facing the screen, it's traveling from my right to my left-hand side.
What do you remember happening after that?
After that, just remember hearing some gunshots. I remember seeing a large group of people down in the lower seats, kind of to my right, just kind of stand up. It's kind of like a wave of people just get up and start to move to the left. And at that point, we got down under our seats.
What did you see, if anything, when you got down underneath your seats?
At that point, I was trying to remain safe. Continue to hear shooting. I don't know, it seemed like forever, but there was certain breaks that I perceived in the shooting, and at that point I would try to look up to see if I can see anything. I was kind of doing that until the shooting would start again. I saw what looked like muzzle flashes down to my right. I was seeing bullets hitting the concrete backing of the seats, kind of making little plumes of concrete as they hit.
Were you able to know what was happening with the people around you?
So with Jackie and Rebecca to my right, I was laying kind of facing them. I was laying between Jackie and the seats in front of us. At that point, I was trying to encourage Jackie to dial 911 because she was the only one of us with a working phone at the time.
And what do you remember after that?
Well, the shooting continued. Like I said, being in there, it seemed as if it was going on for an exceptional amount of time. After that, like I said, I was peeking up and looking. At one point, I felt something very hot on my left arm.
What part of your left arm?
The upper part of my arm.
I wonder if the record can reflect that this witness just grabbed the upper part of his left arm.
Okay.
At that point, I was trying to look as best I could and stay down. I saw somebody walking out where we had come in, so the front right entrance that I had pointed out previously. At that point, I tried to encourage the people I was there with to leave because I felt at that point it was kind of safe to get up and move away from where we were at.
And I'm going to just ask you, was the shooting still going on at that point in time, or had it stopped?
It had stopped at that point.
So what did you do after that?
So we got up, started leaving, started heading to our left, as others were as well. I remember having to step over just a person. It was just an incredible amount of blood. We continued moving towards the exit. At that point, there was a lot of people kind of trying to get through the door. And we proceeded to there was an awning that looks over the concession area and stairs that came down. We were trying to come down those stairs. So as we were leaving, I remember being very close to Jackie and running down the stairs. We heard a couple more shots fired. We weren't sure where they were coming from, where it was safe to kind of go, or if there was going to be large amounts of shooting again. So we kind of crouched down on the stairs and assessed the situation for a minute before proceeding out of the building.
Did the shooting stop eventually again that you heard when you were on those stairs?
It did, yeah.
What'd you do at that time?
So at that time we left the building and we couldn't remember where we parked. So we were running through the parking lot, trying to figure out where the car was, just trying to get somewhere safe. And as we were running through the parking lot, we finally found the car. We also, as we were in the parking lot, found a young boy that was there as well who reported to us that his friend had been shot, and he was covered in blood. So we got him in the car and helped him call his mom and drove away from the theater at that point.
Were you able to reunite that little boy with his mother?
We were. So the phone that we had working, he called his mom, and we were able to meet at a gas station a little ways down the road and kind of hand him off to his mom.
You explained to the jury that you had felt at some point in time something hot on your arm.
Yeah.
Did you ever recognize anything on your arm after you left the theater?
I did. There was a small burn mark, I suppose it was. It wasn't too dramatic, I guess.
I have no further questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Espinosa.
Any cross-examination?
No.
And the jury doesn't seem to have any questions. So may this witness be released from his subpoena?
Please, thank you, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No.
All right, thank you, sir. Call your next witness, please.
The people call Sergeant Rich Anselmi.
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. All right, please be seated. You can place that exhibit behind you there. Thank you. Please tell us your full name and spell your first and last names.
My full name is Richard Anselmi. My last name is spelled A-N-S-E-L-M-I.
Ms. Pearson, you may proceed.
Sergeant Anselmi, where do you work?
I work for the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office.
What do you do for them?
For them, I'm the bomb squad commander and I'm a patrol supervisor
How long have you worked with the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office?
since 2000, so about 15 years.
Now, you indicated that you work with the bomb squad,
Yes,
and are you in charge of the bomb squad?
yes I am.
Were you on duty on July 20th of 2012?
I was not on duty, but yes, I was on the bomb squad.
On that day, were you asked to respond to the Century 16 Theater?
Yes, I did. Just shortly after 1 a.m. in the morning, I received a call at home from a lieutenant with Aurora PD, and he told me that they had a active shooter type situation with a lot of casualties and that they needed us to respond to the Century 16 Theater, that they had the suspect's vehicle, which they believe could be booby-trapped, and some other suspicious items in the area.
And they asked you to come and look at all of those?
Yes, they did.
Now, to be on the bomb squad, do you have specialized training?
Yes, we do.
What kind of training have you had to be on the bomb squad?
So to be on the bomb squad, you have to go through a 6-week course, which is called the Hazardous Devices School, which is run by the FBI at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama.
Have the other members of the bomb squad gone through that same school?
Yes.
So when you were notified by the lieutenant about that, did you activate the bomb squad?
Yes, I did. I called everybody.
Did you also notify any other agencies?
Yes, I did. I notified one of the special agent bomb technicians with the FBI.
Were any other bomb squads from any other areas in the metro area also asked to respond?
Yes, they were. Adams County was also asked to respond, I believe from somebody from Aurora, not from me.
What time did you get to the scene, to the Century 16 Theater?
I got there 20 to 30 minutes after I received the call, so sometime between 1:30 and 1:40.
At the time that you got there, what was going on outside the theater?
When I arrived, there were a lot of patrol cars there, so I could only park maybe within about a half a mile of the theater. So I jogged from where I parked up to the area where the command post was in front of the theater. As I was jogging up there, I could see witnesses and possibly victims, I don't know, people loading onto RTD buses close to the command post. I didn't see anybody that was injured at that time.
Now, you indicated that you were asked to look at other, what looked to be at the time, suspicious vehicles or suspicious packages.
Yes.
Did you determine that any of these other cars or packages that people were concerned with had anything to do with this case?
No, I didn't. I didn't actually look at them. When I got to the command post, one of my bomb technicians, John Balla, was with me. And as soon as the patrol officers on scene identified those things for me, I had John Balla, one of the team leaders, go ahead and inspect those. So I never inspected any of those myself, but he came back and told me that none of those things were a hazard or related to this case.
Were you asked to have the bomb squad do a search of the defendant's car that was behind the theater?
Yes, I was. When I arrived at the command post, the incident commander from Aurora told me that the suspect's vehicle was behind the theater, that when the suspect was taken into custody, he had told officers on scene that he had explosive devices at his apartment, and that the Aurora officers and myself as well immediately made the presumption that there could be explosive devices in the car. So the incident commander asked us to investigate that, and so I went around and to the back side of the theater, one of the sergeants on perimeter from Aurora pointed the suspect's vehicle out to me, and so then I started moving around that vehicle to get a good look at it, so I knew what was around it. Not closely around it, probably within 150 to 200 feet of the vehicle, because I wanted to know exactly where to bring my next team in to inspect that vehicle.
As part of doing that, did you have concerns about the perimeter that existed around the vehicle where police officers were?
Yes, I did. They obviously had a crime scene perimeter from Aurora on the back side of the theater. In order to do that, they had to maintain visual on the back side of the theater. Some of the officers on that perimeter were in direct line of sight of the vehicle, and so I had to move them to safer locations where they could still see the backside of the theater to make sure nobody was approaching, nobody was getting within their perimeter, but they were out of direct line of sight of the suspect's vehicle.
Do you have a bomb truck that comes when the bomb squad responds?
Yes, we do. We have a couple bomb trucks, but one of them is our primary response vehicle, and that one came that night.
When the bomb truck came and the rest of the bomb squad arrived, did they handle the search of the defendant's vehicle behind the theater?
Yes, after myself and Vala arrived on scene, the next bomb tech on scene was Investigator Craig Clark. He is also one of my team leaders, and so I put him in charge. I met up with him, showed him where the suspect's vehicle was, and I told him that his task was going to be to clear that vehicle as the bomb truck and more bomb techs arrived on scene.
Did you do other things then outside of dealing with the car that night at the theater?
I did, yes. So the other things that I was involved in primarily was making sure the scene was safe as far as the other hazardous or suspicious items, cars, vehicles on scene. So I communicated with the command post. I had two team leaders, like I said, Vala and Clark. Vala was working on the front side and the inside of the theater, and Clark was working on the car on the back side. So I coordinated with the command post, giving tasks to those team leaders as we identified them.
Did you stay on scene throughout the night and into the morning hours of July 20th of 2012?
Yes, I did. I stayed until about 0800 that morning when we were sure that at that point in time the suspect's vehicle had been cleared of hazardous devices. Everything else had been cleared of hazardous devices inside the theater and outside, except for the actual victims that were still inside the theater. None of them had been touched or moved yet. So at 0800, I talked to the incident commander at that time, and I suggested that that was the only place where hazardous devices still might be. And he said he would talk to the coroner's office and his investigators to see how they wanted to handle that. So at about 8 o'clock, my team and I left. We came back at about 10 o'clock a.m., at which point in time the incident commander told me that, yes, they would feel better if we cleared those victims that were still inside the theater for hazardous devices as well.
When you say clear the victims for hazardous devices, what do you mean?
Well, we had received information that the suspect had thrown something inside the theater. The suspect had also been inside the theater prior to leaving and coming back in with his weapons. So we didn't know if he had left something inside the theater, if he had thrown something inside the theater that had not exploded yet. John Vala had gone through with one of the tactical teams and checked the theater everywhere he could except for the immediate area right around the victims that were still there. So the only place in the theater that hazardous devices could still be were at those victims. So we devised a plan with the incident command that they would go ahead and videotape, do their scene documentation, and then we would go in and check each of those victims to make sure that there weren't any hazardous devices before the coroner's office and the investigators came in and did what they needed to do.
How did you go about checking the victims for hazardous devices?
So I had 5 bomb technicians on scene, myself and 4 others. I divided those 2 into 2-man teams so that they would enter 2 at a time with me. And we would have, so we basically have 3 bomb technicians in the theater at a time, including myself. We would go ahead and check the first 5 victims. Then they would rotate out and the next team would come in. We'd check the last 5 victims. The way we checked the victims, we made sure that there wasn't anything possibly or potentially hazardous under them or on them. So we would actually pick up, move them, look underneath them. It usually took us 2, for most of the victims, it took us 2 of the bomb techs to move them because they were in between seats and in the theater and stuff like that. So it'd take 2 of us to lift and then 1 to be looking underneath. And then we would also do a standard pat-down search, pockets, everything else to make sure that there wasn't anything hazardous on them.
Did you find any hazardous devices in the theater?
We did not know.
To do this, did you suit up in a bomb suit?
No, it really wouldn't be practical in a heavy bomb suit, so we used Tyvek suits mostly to protect us from bodily fluids and stuff inside the theater, and then we had light body armor on, what we call flak vests, which would provide us, and helmets, which would provide us some protection from a fragmentation blast.
Thank you. One moment. Just Thank you. I don't have any more questions for you.
Any cross-examination, Mr. King?
No questions, thank you.
Hold on, the jury may have some questions from you. No, it does not appear that they have any questions, so may this witness be released from his subpoena?
You may, Your Honor.
Any objection? None. All right, thank you, sir. Call your next witness, please.
The people call investigator Jonathan Valla.
Good afternoon. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please be seated.
Thank you.
Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first and last names?
It's Jonathan Valla, Jonathan. My last name is Valla. It's V as in Victor, Aala.
Ms. Pearson, you may proceed with your direct examination.
Investigator Valla, where do you work?
For the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office.
What do you do for them?
I'm an investigator and a bomb squad team leader.
How long have you been on the bomb squad?
A little over 16 years.
Were you on duty on July 20th of 2012?
I was not.
Were you contacted that day?
Yes, I was on call and contacted by dispatch.
What were you advised?
I was advised that Aurora Police Department was requesting the bomb squad to respond to the movie theater at the Aurora Mall.
Did you get any other information beyond that?
Just that there was a shooting.
What did you do when you got that information?
I started trying to determine what kind of assets I needed, who I needed to call, and as I was doing that, I received a call from Sergeant Anselmi.
When you say assets, what do you mean?
How many bomb technicians I need to respond, what kind of equipment I need to bring with to the scene.
Did you contact other bomb technicians?
No, I was getting ready to when Sergeant Anselmi called and advised a little bit further of he had received a call from Aurora directly, and so he was calling me to let me know the information he had received.
Did you respond to the Century 16 Theater?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall what time you got there?
It was between 1:30 and 1:40 in the morning.
When you arrived there, what were you asked to do?
When I arrived on scene, I had to park some distance away, and I got my gear together and was working my way towards the command post, and I was contacted by a couple of different agency police officers advising that there was some suspicious vehicles sitting in front of, or on the west side, the main side of the theater, that they were suspicious.
How did they recognize you as having something to do with the bomb squad?
On my tactical vest, it says EOD for explosive ordnance disposal.
And that was a signal to other police officers that you would be a person to contact about something they thought that was suspicious.
Correct.
Did you, at that point, look at some other vehicles?
No, the officers weren't exactly sure where they were. They gave a general description, so I responded to the command post where I met up with Sergeant Anselmi, and he had information that another police officer knew where one of the vehicles was.
Fair to say there was a lot of people being overly concerned about everything that looked even remotely suspicious at the theater.
Yes.
When you looked at these other vehicles, did they have anything at all to do with this case?
No.
After you had completed that, where did you go next?
I was then tasked to go into Theater 9 to ensure that there was no improvised explosive devices or anything that would be dangerous, so the police department could safely hold the crime scene.
How did you conduct that process?
Myself and a couple of Aurora police sergeants, we entered through the main doors in the front of the theater and then went to Theater 9. As we were entering, we went to the hallway to the right and worked our way down that hall, and basically started on that side of the theater and I started working my way systematically up the stairs behind me and working my way around the top while looking down the aisles, checking for anything suspicious, anything that may be dangerous, the police officers on scene, and working my way down to the bottom area.
Were there a lot of people's purses or packages or backpacks in the theater?
Yeah, there was bags, there was purses. I recall seeing, I thought it was a diaper bag, but just there was a lot of debris, shoes.
Were you looking into bags at that time, looking for things?
I'm going to object at this point. This is cumulative to Sergeant Anselmi's testimony.
Ms. Pearson?
Your Honor, it's a little more detailed than what Sergeant Anselmi was able to provide.
Okay, overruled.
Were you looking into the bags that were in the theater?
The bigger bags that possibly could hold something more significant and dangerous to the officers on scene, I was checking to make sure that they were safe.
At the time when you were in the theater, was there gas still present in the theater?
No, I could smell some kind of odor, but I couldn't quite place it at the time.
Was it noisy?
No.
Was there any difficulty in trying to check the bags and the things in the theater that you needed to check to ensure that it was safe?
I mean, besides trying to be very careful where I was stepping, there was, besides a lot of debris, there was blood, there was things that would, it made it difficult to both look in down the aisles as well as working my way down some aisles, and then being careful where I was stepping as well.
So you entered into the theater on the right side, and then did you go up the stairs that would be on the right if you were facing the screen?
Correct.
When you went up the stairs, did you go to the top, or how did you do this to go across the theater?
I went back up the stairs, systematically looking down each aisle, then made my way to the top, worked my way around the top, and then came down the opposite stairs, and then down to the bottom. Then I searched as best I could around the floor seating, the orchestra area. The movie theater screen was laying on some of them, so I tried as best as I could to look under that, but continued from there. Then I looked and checked the trash cans on the first and second level, and then we continued up to the projection area, and once that was all completed, then returned to the command post.
During the time that you were checking in the theater and in the trash cans and in the projection area, did you find any other explosive devices or anything that was of concern to you as a bomb squad member?
I did not.
After you completed that in the theater, what did you do next?
There was one other incident that was called in that was suspicious. That quickly cleared that, and then returned back to the command post, where we then started to organize an explosive detection canine search of the remaining 15 theaters.
How did you go about doing that?
Myself and Deputy J.J. Smith, we went briefly into the main lobby of the theater, where I found a map for a site map, basically, that I took off the wall and brought it back to the command post, and there we made assignments for what explosive detection canine was to take what area they were assigned.
When you're talking about an explosive detection canine, what is that involved? Is there a person with a dog?
Yes, it's a...
Excuse me, I'm going to object to relevance to this line of questioning as well as 403.
Overruled.
Does that involve a person and a dog?
Yes, it's the handler and the certified canine.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
I'm going to approach you with what has been marked as People's Exhibit 638. Which I've already shown to the defense counsel. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And how do you recognize it?
It looks like the map I took off the wall in the theater.
Is there writing that was added to the map that was not on it when you first grabbed it off the wall?
Yes, we put the initials of the canine handlers and the areas they were to search.
And is it otherwise in the same condition as when you saw it on July 20th of 2012?
It looks that way.
Your Honor, I move for admittance of People's Exhibit 638.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. I maintain the same objection to relevance in 403.
Any response?
Your Honor, this is actually a map of the entire theater, which gives the jury...
Go to the microphone, please.
Your Honor, this is a map of the entire theater, which will allow the jury to understand better spatially where everything fits and where Theater 9 is in relationship to everything else.
So it goes to the investigation that was conducted.
It does.
All right, overruled. The exhibit is admitted. This is P-TR-638, and it may be published.
I can hold it up here, and if you could hand me that microphone, please. So. In looking at this map, can you explain to us what we see on it?
Yeah, basically there's a layout of first and second floor. We broke up the seating areas by handlers, so the only area we did.
Jury can't see.
Oh,
Let's,
sorry.
all right, that's okay. I can hold this up here for you too.
There's initials where each canine handler had areas of responsibility for their search. The only area that they did not search was Theater 9, since I had done that personally. So once they completed that, then we checked them off, and that was an area that was deemed clear.
Your Honor, if the district attorney is finished with that exhibit, I would ask that it be put in the exhibit pile as opposed to left in the middle of the courtroom.
Ms. Pearson?
Your Honor, I'm going to ask him a couple more questions about it. Perhaps they can see it better from there.
Okay, I'll allow it. Go ahead.
In terms of searching the theater, how many groups of people with dogs did you have to search the theater?
I believe there was 5 or 6 handlers with their canine.
Were they all from Arapahoe County?
No, there weren't any from Arapahoe County. There was one from Arvada Police Department, Golden Police Department, Jefferson County, Denver Sheriff's, Boulder County.
How long did it take for the different teams of dogs to search the theater?
I'm going to note an objection and ask to approach.
Okay. The objection is overruled. Ms. Pearson?
Investigator Vala, I think I was asking you how long it took the various teams with an officer and a dog to search the rest of the theaters.
I believe it was somewhere in the area of 30 minutes or so.
Once the rest of the theaters had been searched with the dogs, what did you do next on scene?
I then responded back to the command post where we were then directed to return back to our bomb truck, which is on the street behind the theater. And from there, we picked up equipment and responded to our headquarters.
Did you later return to the theater?
Yeah, we were summoned to return around 10 in the morning to assist crime scene investigators and coroner's investigators with searching the deceased victims to ensure that they could be safely moved.
Did you in fact do that?
Yes.
Do you recall what time of day you did that?
It was, I want to say it was around 11 in the morning. Myself and Sergeant Knutson, Brian Knutson.
Excuse me, I need to note an objection to cumulative to Sergeant Anselmi's testimony earlier.
Overruled.
Go ahead.
Myself and Sergeant Knutson and Sergeant Anselmi, then we were escorted into Theater 9 where we searched the lower 5 of the victims to ensure that they were safe to move.
Did another team search the upper 5 victims located
Yes.
in the theater?
Yes.
One moment. Thank you.
Any cross-examination, Ms. Spengler?
No questions, thank you.
There do not appear to be any questions. There is a question from the jury. Okay. Thank you, and that's the way to do it. Just flag it down. If you have a question and I'm about to release someone, just raise your hand and let me know. Thank you. Would counsel please approach? Sir, the jury has submitted some questions that, based on the rules of evidence and other applicable rules of law, I find are appropriate, and so I am going to ask those questions now. The first question is, were you informed of the object or of an object being thrown into the theater?
Yes, I was.
The second question is, did you find the object during your search?
I did not.
And the third question is, if so, what did you do with it? But since you did not find it, you don't have to answer that. Any follow-up questions from the people, Ms. Pearson?
No, Your Honor.
Any follow-up questions from you, Ms. Spengler?
No, thank you.
All right, may this witness be released from his subpoena?
He may.
Is there any objection?
No.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Call your next witness, please.
Your Honor, the people called Caitlyn Pedicord.
Good afternoon. Can I have you raise your right hand so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first and last names?
My name is Caitlyn Pedicord, Caitlyn Peddicord.
Ms. Tisch-McGuire, you may proceed.
Thank you. Were you at the Century 16 movie theater in Aurora, Colorado on July 19th of 2012?
Yes.
Did that go into the early morning?
Sorry. Thank you. Yes, thank you for letting us know.
Thank you. Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes.
Did that go into the early morning hours of July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Why were you going to the movie theater that day?
We were going to see the new Batman movie.
And who were you going with?
I was with two groups of friends, one of whom I sat with. The other half ended up in a different section of the theater. I went with Alex Teves, Amanda Lindgren.
I'm going to ask you to just, I apologize, just to slow down for a little bit
Sure.
for our court reporter. Thank you.
Do you need their full names?
Please.
Sure. Alex Teves, Amanda Lindgren, Craig Enland, AJ LaFogue, Bobby Goldner, and Billy Oswald.
How did you know these people?
Alex, Craig, and Amanda I went to graduate school with, and the other three were acquaintances from just the community.
What time did you arrive at the movie theater that night?
About 30 minutes prior to the start of the show.
Were you able to go right into the theater?
We had purchased tickets online beforehand, so we went to the will call to pick those up, but then yes, we went into the theater.
Did you go to the concession stand first, or did you go find your seats?
We went to find our seats. Amanda, Alex, and Craig had arrived ahead of us and helped us get seats. Once that was established, Amanda and I went and got concessions.
Where did you sit in the theater?
It was about halfway to 3/4 of the way up the theater, center right.
Right. Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1155.
Yes.
All right. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
What is that?
This is a diagram of the theater seating, and marked are where the two groups of my friends were seated.
Did you fill out that diagram?
Yes.
Does it fairly and accurately represent where you were seated in the theater and what you remember from the theater on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I would move for admission.
Any objection to Exhibit P-TR-1155? No, Your Honor. Without objection, the exhibit is admitted and may be published.
All right. Now, what were you doing while you were waiting for the movie to begin?
Prior to the start of the movie, we got concessions. We were sitting and talking and goofing around. Excited to watch the trailers.
All right. Now, I think there's a cordless microphone up there.
Sure.
In front of you. If you could turn that on, please. All right. And then there's a stick behind you. If you could please point out for the jury where you were seated.
Sure. I was approximately right here. Then to my right was Craig. To the right of her was Amanda. To the right of her was Alex. And then in the back, I don't know what order they were sitting in.
So your other group of friends were not seated immediately next to you?
Right. They were farther to the back.
All right. And can you show the jury where you came into the theater that night?
Sure, I believe we came in on this side, crossed through the front because we weren't sure if we were going to find seats, and then came up this aisle.
Thank you very much. Do you recall anything unusual happening at all while you were waiting for the movie to begin?
Not particularly. It was very crowded. There were some people in costume masks. I had with me a Batgirl cowl that I had put over my head, so sometimes sounds were a little muffled.
Did your movie begin at some point?
Yes.
Okay. Did anything happen in your movie?
Shortly, there was about maybe 15 minutes of the movie that went by. We saw a scene that took place in the manor, and then shortly after that, there was a canister that went over from bottom house right to the left, over the first row of seats.
And what do you remember happening after that?
I remember people snickering, thinking that maybe it was a stink bomb. Nobody really knew. And then from the lower right-hand portion of the theater, the originating point of the canister, there was a loud crack, and then there was a second one, and upon that second one, I was knocked to the ground by another person, landing on my hands and knees.
Do you know what other person you were knocked to the ground by?
I'm not entirely sure. I believe it was Craig.
And can you describe how you were knocked to the ground? Like, did they pull you to the ground, or what happened?
So I was kind of torqued to the side and then just kind of shoved forward, and I heard "get down," and landed on my knees first, kind of stunned for a moment on my hands and knees.
What do you remember happening after that?
There were another series of gunshots that I now registered as gunshots because between the seats I could see people fleeing, and obviously, just it started to process that that's what that was. There was one that went just to my right, over the seats, and I flattened myself as flat as I could to the ground.
Now, are you able to see what's happening with Craig and Amanda and Alex at this point?
No, I was facing to the left of the group. I was, the most I could see really was slightly between the seats, and directly down the aisle I could see people going up the stairs. I didn't want to move too much.
What do you remember after that?
I remember more gunshots every few seconds. The projector room glass shattered, and I remember thinking I might get glass in my hands by being on the floor. And then I heard a very loud crack, which sounded almost like a seat had exploded upon impact, and then at that time I heard Amanda scream Alex's name.
What do you remember after that?
There was a period of more gunfire. I stayed on the ground as long as I could. I didn't want to make myself a target. I didn't know if people were coming up the stairs on either side.
Now, after you heard Amanda scream Alex's name, did you look over and see Amanda and Alex?
I couldn't turn my body at that point in time without making myself known.
So you weren't able to see what was going on with Craig, Amanda, or Alex at that point in time?
No.
Okay. What do you remember after that?
There was a period of a lack of gunfire, and at that time I counted slowly to 5 Mississippi to give myself enough realization that time had passed, and then I slowly went into a crawl, and then when I continued to not hear gunfire, into a run towards the end of the aisle.
What happened when you got into that run?
I saw more people coming up the left side of the theater towards the emergency exit. joined the crowd up into the emergency exit and back down a series of stairs and directly out the front doors of the theater.
At any point in time, did you realize if you had been injured?
I wasn't feeling much of anything physically at that point.
Was there at any point in time after the shooting, did you realize if you had been injured?
In the days after, I realized that I had bruises on my legs, on my thighs, on my knees, some scratches on my hands, but nothing that would necessitate having gone to an emergency room.
What happened when you got outside the theater?
As I got through the front glass doors, I realized that I was no longer with my group. But I ran to directly left out of the doors, through the parking lot, about halfway down the parking lot, ducked behind a car, and waited.
Were you able to meet up with your friends Craig, Amanda, and Alex?
I waited for several minutes behind a car. There were groups of people that passed me that were getting into their cars and leaving, but everyone looked calmer than I felt. So I looked over the top of one of the cars, saw that people were gathering outside of the theater, and approached. And at that time, I began calling out my friends' names one by one until I was approached by Craig.
What did you observe when you saw Craig?
When I saw him, he was wearing a light colored shirt and it was splattered red with blood. He looked very dazed. And I saw a couple paces behind him was Amanda. She also looked dazed. I asked him where Alex was and he shook his head.
Shook his head yes, shook his head no?
Shook his head no, and then looked at the ground.
What did you take that to mean at the time?
I took it to mean he was either seriously injured or dead.
Did Craig have to seek medical attention that night?
He did. He had marks on his face and on his arm. And when the ambulances arrived and they were asking if people needed medical attention, we got him on one of those, and he was taken to an ER at that time.
Were you able to see Amanda at that time?
Yes.
And what did you observe about Amanda?
Asked and answered.
Hold on. I don't see it. I don't see it as a question that's been asked after this witness exited the theater. So the objection as to ask and answer under Rule 611A and 403 is overruled.
What did you observe about Amanda when you saw Amanda?
She looked very shaken up. She wasn't talking much. Her hands were shaking. She, I grabbed her hand and we went to the other side of the grass where more people were gathering. At that point, she made some phone calls, began crying hysterically.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibits 2653.
Yes.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a picture of Alex Teves.
Is that the person that you went to the theater with on July 19th of 2012 into July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Have you seen that person alive since?
No.
No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor. Oh, sorry. I apologize, Your Honor. At this time, I would move for the admission of People's Exhibit 2653.
Any objection?
That object is irrelevant at this point.
Can I see that real quick, please? Could counsel please approach?
Sure.
The objection is overruled pursuant to Rules 401 and 402.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask to publish People's Exhibit 2653.
Yes, People's Exhibit P-TR-2653 has been admitted and may be published.
Could you describe for the jury who this is?
That is Alex Teves.
All right, no further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. King, do you have any cross-examination?
I do not, thank you.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions. So may this witness be released from her subpoena.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Objection?
No.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Members of the jury, let's go ahead and take our afternoon break at this time. Please remember all my advisements during the break. All of them continue to apply, okay? Enjoy the break, and I'll see you back here in about 20 minutes. Thank you. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Everyone may be seated. Ms. Tish McGuire, are you intending to call Mr. Espinosa's wife as a witness?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So what I'll do then is after the break, I'll bring in juror number 737 and follow up with him pursuant to Ms. Brady's request. Okay?
And Your Honor, could we just have one more joint request, both from the defense and the people, that we also remind the juror to ask his wife to have no contact with the Espinosas as well, and I'll make sure that the Espinosas know that as well.
I will do that, and I want to make sure that you instruct both Mr. Espinosa and his wife that they're to have no contact at all with this juror, and that they're to make no purchases, they're to do no transactions with this juror, none at all. And if there's an order that has been placed, they can't do anything about it. They got to leave it alone. There has to be no contact at all. Do you understand?
Your Honor, and just for the record, I've already informed them of all of those things, and I will do so again tonight.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, I will follow up with juror number 737 after the break. Okay, enjoy the break, everyone. The court will be in recess. Yeah. After the break. The court will be in recess. Thank you.